Thanks for listening to Goddab Radio, a podcast for progressive thinking people. I'm Mad Dog Manser, and I'm here to bring you relevant and honest news and information that I find compelling. We cover politics, debunk conspiracy theories, report on cannabis, especially in Oregon, and feature guest interviews regularly. At Goddab Radio, we are ferociously progressive, fiercely skeptical, and forcefully scientific with a no-nonsense attitude. Today is Friday, April 7th, and today we will have a fun show. We debunk faith healing today, which is a lot bigger, which it was a lot bigger 30 or 40 years ago, but it seems to be making a resurgence in some areas of the country. So we thought we would just shine a bright and holy light on that bullshit. Of course, we slam Trump in carnival barks as usual, including his stance on the chemical attack and blaming Obama. We specifically cover the expenses that he has going down to Mar-a-Lago, and not to mention what it costs for Melania and his son Barron to stay in New York, and some other stuff. We also have our usual cannabis coverage, as we do every issue. And in the second half, we will have an interview with Mike Milburn, who developed a drug driving app called Druid, D-R-U-I-D, a simple cell phone app that can tell if you are too impaired to drive. We want to thank our sponsors for helping make Goddab Radio possible: Honey Badger Sungrown, Oregon Cannabis Connection, and Southern Oregon Alternative Medicine. And a special thanks, as always, to Eric Sky for allowing us to use his amazing song, One for the Green, to open and close our show. We really appreciate that. And just a special note, I got to see Eric perform live at the Community Music Center here on St. Francis Street, just south of Powell Street in Portland. And it was a great show. He performed with Tasia Gherkin and Doug Smith. All three of them kind of did a roundhouse, each playing a different song, and then they collaborated at the end together. It was really a great show, and I suggest you try to catch Eric Sky any chance you get. He's a Portlander and plays around town at different places. So, but we're going to start off our show tonight on faith healing. Faith healing. That's right. It's still around. There are people that actually still do this. Yeah. But we got some enlightening information for you. It's almost more humorous this week than anything. I don't know many folks that are going to listen to this podcast that believe in faith healing or believe in most of the conspiracy theories we cover, for that matter. But Rational Wiki has a good little bit of stuff in here on faith healing. And they started off with a great quote from Anonymous. You don't see faith healers working in hospitals for the same reason you don't see psychics winning the lottery. That's a fact. Faith healing is a form of medical woo that attempts to cure a wide range of ailments primarily through personal prayer and intercessory prayer, sometimes augmented by faith-based rituals. God is capable of curing all diseases and injuries that could ever affect anybody, assuming He is willing. Yeah. Faith healing is a somewhat distinct form of alternative medicine, you might say, and not like Southern Oregon alternative medicine. Most of the practices they do are pretty straightforward. Cannabis, massage. They do acupuncture. We'll talk about that in another show. But this is a crazy alternative medicine, faith healing. It relies entirely, of course, on faith. Like psychic surgery, like they do in Central America, like crazy stuff. Well, we'll have to do that on another show. Psychic surgery. This could be contrasted with other alternative medicine practices that rely on some manner of supposedly medically active ingredient. Occasionally faith healing pops up in the peer-reviewed literature, usually focused around whether intercessory prayer for a patient can improve their health or recovery, right? Which is the same studies show it can't, of course. Like with hypnosis, it is difficult to define both a placebo and a control group against faith healing, considering the whole practice is the placebo, right? And as such, the false fallibility of the practice of faith healing is notoriously unimpressive. Yeah, you might say that. Here's a great quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson. If you are the person who receives a diagnosis of 6 months to live, but whose cancer went into remission, you are more likely to believe that God cured you. This invisible force, creator of the universe, cured you, than that you had 3 idiotic doctors diagnose you. I taught physics to pre-med students who became doctors. Not all of them are smart, I assure you. One of the reasons I love Neil deGrasse is he's blunt about things, and of course, most all doctors are smarter than the average person. I'll give you that. But he's right about not all doctors are brilliant by any means. That's for sure. Faith healing is obviously not what you would consider science. The actual causal effects are limited to the placebo effect. However, since the placebo effect produces testable and reproducible results pertaining to faith healing, studies have been done on the subject, showing that it has little effect other than to increase one's spiritual health. So, when properly controlled for, and when confounding factors such as cherry picking and selective reporting are removed, faith healing does pretty much nothing. In this regard, faith healing performs exactly as well as any other form of alternative medicine and fails the meaningful definition of a working treatment. That's for sure. It may be possible that faith healing works as a placebo, much like other non-active forms of alternative medicine, such as homeopathy or Reiki, causing the patient to truly believe that they are being healed. Placebo treatments work in a complex manner. Someone receiving a treatment may consciously or subconsciously alter their habits and improve their health, or the treatment will just cause them to think positively and at least feel much better until the illness disappears on its own. Beyond this effect, which can be extremely powerful, there is no evidence to suggest that faith healing works. In particular, experiments on prayer have found no increase in people's recovery from surgery despite prayers being said for them. With regards to serious illness, the placebo effect may not be as much as of much use. To that specifically, that's a big deal. I mean, the power of positive thinking is there's something to that. It does have effects on health, on well-being, and all those sorts of things. But to claim that it's being done by a divine person or something is absolutely absurd. If anything, it's simply the person's belief and their positive attitude that changes what's really going on. Faith healing is a complete joke. And of course, television made it much, much worse. And televangelists that do it are they're really criminals in my estimation. I think that they should be shut down and literally just about thrown in jail almost. I mean, it's so bad. There's another thing that you could consider is that the faith-based aspect of the 12-step program. There is a major faith-based aspect to that. One of the steps is to believe in your God or your higher being and to put faith in them. Not to knock 12-step program because it works for some people, but I'm going to knock the 12-step program because of the need to believe in a higher power than yourself. That's bullshit. If that's what it takes for you to give up the drugs, okay. But to think that that's the real reason that you're giving up the drugs, I'm sorry, but you're mistaken. And you're being a sucker to religion. And on Goddab Radio, we really don't like religion. I need to get the dogs up here growling in the microphone. So anyway, faith healing, not a thing. Definitely not a thing, folks. I'm just saying. That's just, I can't explain enough. So anyway, I guess that as usual, it leads us to our next segment of our show, which everybody loves. It's time for Carnival Barks, our weekly Trump roundup, where we highlight recent alternative facts from the so-called president, a segment where we point out the absurdities, lies, and blunders coming from Trump and his inept administration. And this week, we start off with the sheer madness of Trump's weekly trips to Mar-a-Lago in Florida. It is amazing. This man is spending an estimated $3 million for each one of these trips, and he's gone down every weekend since he's become president. Mr. Obama's travel bill for the 8 years of his presidency came to $9 million, which was an average of $12 million a year. Well, in the 10 weeks that Trump has gone to Mar-a-Lago, he's already spent $30 million. Absolutely insane. And of course, for years he was bitching about Obama going on golfing trips when there's all these other problems in the world, and Obama didn't spend a tenth of the money that this piece of shit is spending doing this. President Trump has matched this figure in the first month, $10 million in 3 golfing holidays. Wow, it's just amazing to me. I can't. And then the other big figure is New York Police Department has confirmed it costs between $127,000 and $146,000 a day to protect the First Lady and her son while they reside in Trump Tower. Not to mention the inconvenience because they're shutting down Fifth Avenue or whatever the Trump Tower sits on for a couple of blocks on either side of it. No traffic, no pedestrian traffic. It's crazy. Something else that happened this week just kind of blew my mind. I'm wondering why is Trump saying that Susan Rice needs to be put in jail? Really? Lock her up kind of crap like he was doing with Hillary is just ridiculous. For what? She followed protocol and discovered his idiots making plans with Russians during the election. I mean, it's just amazing. Of course, he's trying to deflect and he's trying to blame Susan Rice for leaking something. She didn't leak a damn thing. It seems that if Susan Rice is involved, the Republicans' heads just explode. I mean, what the fuck? Lindsey Graham was all about the investigations into the Russian involvement. And then he heard Susan Rice may have unmasked General Flynn, and wait a minute, we're gonna have to bring her in and question her under oath about that. No bullshit. If you do, little Lindsey Graham, you need to just shut up and stay down there in freaking Carolina. And then John McCain too. I mean, what is wrong with John McCain? What's wrong with these guys? They really hate her that much? Do they really hate her that much? As she eventually explained to Andrea Mitchell, she did not do the unmasking herself. It was intelligence people that did. She simply asked them to unmask because she thought it was relevant to the conversation that she was reading instead of just seeing a U.S. person. She needed to know who the hell it was. And it was probably freaking Michael or General Flynn. I mean, not to mention, it might have been Jared Kushner. It might have been little Donnie Trump Jr., for that matter. I'm just saying, they're the ones who boasted about the big money dealings that they've got going on with Russia. That's what they've been saying for quite a long time. So I don't know. It just seems stupid to me. And then, of course, in the end, the most ridiculous thing that son of a bitch said this week was how he blamed Obama for the chemical attack in Syria. What is wrong with this piece of shit? He should be blaming the Russians and Assad, but instead he's trying to blame Obama, an American, really, the previous president. Oh my God. Trump supported Assad for the past couple of years. He kept saying Obama should stand down. And Rex Tillerson just last week said the Syrian people would have to decide on whether Assad stays or goes, which was basically an invitation to do what he wants to innocent Syrians. And we see what happened. Sarin gas dropped on civilians. Over 100 people killed, and a huge portion of those were children. And then, of course, Obama stands in the Rose Garden talking about how he crossed the red line, he crossed many lines, what is he going to do? What's Trump going to do? Does he have a mission? Does he have a plan of attack? Does he know what he's going to do? Or is he just going to do some bombing and then just be done with it and act like he did something? It's just ridiculous. Tillerson, after the comments he made, Tillerson needs to resign. He didn't even want the fucking job. He took it because his wife told him he needed to do it for his country. I mean, that's just stupid. He needs to quit. He needs to be the first cabinet member to resign. And Trump needs to get a grip and stop blaming Obama for things that Obama didn't do, including the wiretapping at Trump Tower. Idiot. It's the sign of a truly unsecure man. It's a sign of a truly unstable man. And it's a sign of a truly unfit man. Completely unfit to lead a Boy Scout troop, let alone the nation, let alone this nation. The most powerful nation in the world, with the most powerful military in the world, with the most nuclear weapons in the world. And we have a petulant buffoon as our president. That's enough to scare anybody. And he just sat down and met with the Chinese leader at Mar-a-Lago. The Chinese premier, the last thing in the world that he wants to do is go to a golf course. The Chinese think that golfing is a sport of millionaires. That's the way they feel about it. They don't golf in China. Yet, he takes the premier to his golf course resort in Florida. I tell you, man, it's just amazing. And then I heard also about the little airport in Florida that's just getting hammered by him every time he comes down there. This poor little airport is just going to be abused to death by the time he's done. Oh, well. Hopefully he won't even finish out a full year. He'll be impeached or resign or quit. I don't know. Something's got to give, though, folks. Something has got to give. All right, we're going to move on to a story here. Out of Carnival Barks, a little more serious, although it's still related to Trump, or the administration anyway. The U.S. withdraws funding for United Nations Population Fund, if you can believe it. The U.S. says it is withdrawing funding for the United Nations Population Fund, an agency that promotes family planning in more than 150 countries. The State Department says the agency supports or participates in a program of coercive abortion or involuntary sterilization in China. But the UNFPA says it is an erroneous claim and that its work does not break any U.S. laws. In total, $32.5 million in funds will be withdrawn for the 2017 fiscal year. Wow, that's a lot of money. This is the first of the promised cuts to U.S. financial contributions to the UN by the Trump administration. Yeah, the UNFPA, like other UN agencies, is funded by governments voluntarily. In 2015, it received $979 million in donations, with the U.S. being its fourth largest donor. The erroneous claim, earlier this year, President Donald Trump reinstated a ban on U.S. funding of any international organization that provided any kind of abortion service or advice. The State Department referred to the presidential directive from January and a provision called the Kemp-Kasten Amendment in its statement on Monday. This determination was made based on the fact that China's family planning policies still involve the use of coercive abortion and involuntary sterilization, and UNFPA partners on family planning activities with the Chinese government agency responsible for these coercive policies, the State Department said. The UNFPA calls those claims erroneous and says that all of its work promotes the rights of individuals and couples to make their own decisions free of coercion or discrimination. It says its programs have saved the lives of tens of thousands of women. Its work includes helping women and young people to access sexual and reproductive services, including family planning, preventing unintended pregnancies and unsafe abortions, supporting maternal health, programs in the world's most fragile countries, including Iraq, South Sudan, Syria, Yemen, and Somalia. The UN Population Fund has been the target of conservative Republican administrations. The BBC's Nada Tawfik of New York reports President Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, and George W. Bush withheld funding for the same reason. The money that has been allocated to the UNFPA for the fiscal year 2017 will be transferred and reprogrammed to the Global Health Program's account, the State Department said. The account will be used by the U.S. Agency for International Development to support family planning, maternal and reproductive health activities in developing countries, it added. Yeah, but how effective can that $32 million be trying to set up its own new family planning and reproductive health services for these countries when there's already a functioning program in place, the UNFPA? The damn conservatives and their ridiculous stance on the right to life and letting it affect all of their decision-making about Planned Parenthood and all of these other things. I mean, it's just absurd on its face. They need to get out of the lives of women and let them make their own decisions on family planning. Let the women make their own decisions on whether they want to get an abortion or not, or use birth control, and provide money so that these women can go get the proper pap smear they need and mammogram and just education about what they need to do to stay safe and prevent themselves from getting AIDS or hepatitis or herpes or God knows what else. It's amazing. It's just really amazing. Anyway, so there's that going on. Thanks, Trump. Thanks again. Really appreciate that. Then, of course, we also have the Gorsuch nomination to the Supreme Court, which was unfortunate. He's way more conservative, of course, than I would prefer. And the Democrats went to the mat on this one. Of course, the Democrats have been literally filibustering. Jeff Merkley spent 15 hours overnight on the floor of the Senate between Tuesday and Wednesday, I believe it was, 15 hours straight speaking on the floor of the Senate. And just to tie it up, and he presented a lot of evidence about why people should not be supporting Neil Gorsuch. And, his evidence was pretty compelling. When it comes right down to it, I don't think he's probably any worse than Scalia was, probably not even quite as bad in some ways. And unfortunately, he's worse in others. He's a textualist. That's what they're calling this guy. This is the new thing, I guess, in jurisprudence, is taking a law exactly by every word that's written down on the piece of paper and no other way to interpret it at all. Which for some people, I guess, is fine. For me, that's absurd. I don't think you can do that with every law. With some laws, they're written perfectly fine. That's fine. If you're a textualist, though, that it changes a lot of things. And of course, he applies this textualism only when it suits him. But I don't think they should filibuster, or it's really not a filibuster. I don't think they should invoke cloture, is what it's called, where they end up requiring 60 votes to get the nominee through. They're going to do that, and it looks like probably today, on Friday. Of course, I'm recording this show, so I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I'm certain that he has enough votes. So it looks like it's probably going to be pretty partisan vote on Gorsuch. I'm guessing it'll be 52, 53 to 45 or 6 or something will be the final vote. And it's going to have to be done breaking the Senate rules. They're going to have to not break the rules. They're going to have to change the rules in the U.S. Senate to allow them to approve him with less than 60 votes. Because the Democrats are going to invoke cloture, and the Republicans are going to override that with a change of the rules. That's a big deal. I hope they never get to that with legislation. They have not done that yet with legislation to get rid of the filibuster rule, essentially. I think it's an important rule. I have had long arguments with some friends over this. They think that it should be majority rules, and I'm one who believes that no, the Senate is kind of I believe that it is the moderating factor there. It's not reactionary like the House of Representatives, and it tends to be a little more stable. And if we were changing laws every 4 years, every time we got a new president, constantly, or every time we got the change in the Senate from Democrat to Republican, and start changing all the laws back, it would just make a mess. We don't need to see that happen. I don't think so. But that's just me. If you don't support Gorsuch, I understand why. I just think there's many worse judges out there that are going to be appointed by this buffoon before it's all said and done. That's my big fear. That is. All right, let's hear a word from our sponsors. Are you interested in cannabis? Do you work in the industry? If so, you should pick up a copy of the Oregon Cannabis Connection newspaper, available at over 380 locations across Oregon. We cover cannabis news and provide solid information on cannabis in Oregon and nationwide. Find us online at www.occnewspaper.com or pick up a copy at one of our distribution locations. We offer an interactive map on our website for your convenience. Oregon Cannabis Connection, connecting the cannabis community in Oregon since 2010. At Honey Badger Sungrown, they care about providing natural products. There are no chemical pesticides and no chemical fertilizers used in their cannabis grow, and they are motivated with a passion for natural cultivation. They take pride in sustainable and environmentally friendly cultivation and produce their product on the beautiful Willamette Valley floor. Honey Badger Cannabis is available at a number of dispensaries, including Grow High Station in Portland and Stash Cannabis Company in Beaverton. Ask for Honey Badger Sungrown products at your dispensary. You can visit them online at www.honeybadgersungrown.com. Now, welcome back to the second half of Goddab Radio. It's Friday, April 7th, and I just had to make my final comments before our interview with Mike Milbury with Druid. You're going to love that interview. It was a great one. I got to make some comments on this Arkansas death penalty race. And Arkansas has 7 men, of course, almost every instance, of course, on death row that are scheduled to be executed this month. 7 different men. And of course, 4 of them are black. There was actually 8, and one of them has got kind of clemency for 30 days from the governor so that they can take a comment period in that one guy's case. But Listen, folks, the death penalty in this country is wrong. It's so wrong, I can't even explain to you how wrong it is. It's wrong on so many levels. Of course, we want to punish people, and if they've murdered people, then we want to punish them and murder them as well, I guess. It's vengeance, basically. But we live in a civilized nation, and we shouldn't have to do that. And the worst part about it is that more often than not, when it's applied, it's not justly applied. Too many people of color have been executed in this country since they started executing people in the beginning of this nation, and it's just wrong. It's never applied properly. The defense for so many people is terrible. A rich person has pretty much never been executed in this country. I mean, there is a couple, one or two, maybe, that did heinous crimes. But most of the time, if you're rich, you don't get executed. Even if you're black, if you're rich, you don't get executed. OJ shows that. OJ deserved to be executed if anybody did. And he just walked away because he paid for a really good defense. Good thing he's rotting in jail right now for all that crap he did in Nevada. But, death penalty doesn't work. The death penalty is wrong. The death penalty is not a deterrent to anybody. Too many innocent people have died. If one innocent man is executed by the state for a crime he didn't commit, then the whole system fails. I'm sorry. There's enough people in jail. We can just keep these dudes in jail, man. I'm sorry. If you take away their television, take away their books, take away the things that make their life easy in jail if you're upset about that. There's a lot of other reasons, a lot of other things we can do other than execute people in this country to make prisoners pay a proper punishment. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but anyway, I kind of felt like I needed to get that rant in there real quick. So there's that. All right. So I was going through my email, and I got an email from this gentleman with who developed this app for checking to see if you're DUI, basically. And I emailed him and said, hey, I'd love to interview you on my podcast and then write an article for my website, occnewspaper.com. And he was all about it. So he gave me a jingle and we were able to talk about it. And here's the interview for you guys. So joining me now on Goddab Radio is Mike Milburn, and he is with the app that has been developed called Druid, D-R-U-I-D. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Oh, pleasure to be here.
Explain a little bit about this unique app that you have developed, and what does Druid stand for, and what does this app do?
Okay, well, Druid is an acronym, D-R-U-I-D, for driving under the influence of drugs. It's designed to be able to measure basically how stoned a person is, although actually more generally, it's a general measure of impairment, regardless of the source. Alcohol, marijuana, prescription drugs, exhaustion, anything like that.
Okay.
I've been a professor of psychology for about 40 years with a specialty in research methods and measurement and statistics. And I was talking actually to Lester Grinspoon, who wrote a book called Marijuana Reconsidered about 40 years ago. And I just mentioned to him that I had this idea that I could measure impairment, or I could figure out how to do it, and he encouraged me strongly to do it because he said the lack of a way to measure impairment is one of the major arguments against legalization. So
right.
I said, okay, I'll do that, and started I had the idea about maybe 3 years ago, but then started working on it after my lunch with Lester, Dr. Grinspan, about a year ago, and it's now in the Apple App Store for the iPad and the iPhone, and the Android version will be coming very soon.
Wow. So this is already available for the iPhone. That's just amazing. And so, you're so right on when you talk about it being for basic impairment, because not only is impairment while driving a problem with legalization of marijuana in many states, there's also a problem currently with prescription drug abuse and people driving their vehicles while they're on prescription drugs. I mean, in many cases, just as impaired as some drunk drivers. So I think this concept is great, not just for marijuana, but generally, actually.
Well, yeah, I heard an interview on either Huffington Post or Salon.com with the editor of High Times magazine, and he said, "Gee, what we need is impairment testing, not drug testing." And I thought, "Gee, that's exactly right." And so I've over the last year put together this app that measures reaction time, decision making, hand-eye coordination, time estimation, and balance, and then integrates all these different measures into an overall measure of impairment that I have calibrated against blood alcohol concentration. So people can get a sense of, because we have this societal norm that the level of impairment with a blood alcohol level greater than 0.08 is legally drunk driving. And so
So you actually are going to tell people, if you've used this much marijuana, you're equivalent to this much blood alcohol level typically. Is that kind of what you're...
Right. To say the app says your level of impairment is, on this scale of 0 to 100, which usually is running about 30 to 80, something like that. And your level of impairment is this number, 65, and that's equivalent to a blood alcohol concentration of 0.10, something like that.
Right. Wow. That's really amazing. So to me, it just is a great idea that could be applied by anybody, including people who've been drinking. When you're at the bar, if you have this app on your phone to make sure that you shouldn't drive, you could, obviously it probably hasn't been actually proven completely scientifically. What kind of studies have you done on this? To show its accuracy, I should say. Have you done any clinical trials? Is that the right terminology?
Well, yeah, I've collected a lot of data that because I designed it as a data collection tool, as well as a sort of a self-assessment tool. Prior to this app, to Druid, people didn't have a way of assessing their own level of impairment to make a responsible judgment, or to ask their spouse or the designated driver, "Gee, you've had a few drinks. Can you just do Druid?" And so we're good to go. But now people can make that self-assessment regardless of the source of impairment.
Right. That's excellent. So, can you walk me through a little bit about the kinds of, you said that it measures your balance and hand-eye coordination and some other things. How does it do this? You have some you have some physical things you do with your phone, and you have questions you answer. How does that work?
Well, so we have 4 different tasks. The first one flashes either circles or squares on the screen, and you have to do a different thing, either touch the screen where the circle was, or hit the oval at the top of the screen when you see the square. So it's reaction time and decision making. So, and this is what in the driving impairment literature is called a divided attention task, that you have to do multiple things at the same time.
Oh, okay.
And so the second and third tasks are also divided attention tasks. You have to estimate passage of 30 or 60 seconds, and meanwhile, hitting the screen when circles appear on the right or left side, and counting the number of circles that appear. actually we eliminated that. You just touch the screen. So you're reacting to where the screen hits and also estimating the passage of time. And the third task is with your circles on the screen. It's moving around, it's jumping, it's changing direction. You got to keep your finger on the circle as much as you can, and then count the squares that are flashing on the screen. And then the fourth task is one that we drew from the standard field sobriety test, where you just stand on one foot, and the motion sensors in the mobile device will have a measure of how balanced or imbalanced you are.
Right. That sounds like it would work. It would be pretty effective in many ways. And
you asked about research, and I'm doing research now with a psychiatry professor at Brown Medical School, who has a big grant to administer marijuana, and she built Druid into her research protocol. I'm working with researchers at Washington State University who are developing a marijuana breathalyzer. So the combination of the two. I mean, I should say I'm pro-legalization, but I'm anti-drug driving. But the cool thing about Druid is if people feel strongly, marijuana doesn't affect me, this app will provide an empirical demonstration of that. But
right.
If they aren't, it will give them that information.
Now,
and I want to mention too, to any of your listeners, Druid is a tool, and like any tool, even one as simple as a hammer, it takes some practice to use it most effectively. And so people, when they first use it, you need to use it several times, practice it several times to develop a sort of baseline, and then when a person suspects strongly, since they've had a joint or something, that they are impaired, they can use Druid in test mode. The app tells you, your reaction time is 50% slower than your baseline and so on, and also gives the equivalent of the blood alcohol concentration equivalent for their level of impairment.
Right. Wow. I really wish I had an iPhone. I would love to try this out. That would just be great. I think it's great...
My programmer tells me the Android version is 30%. He told me a couple of days ago it was 30% done. So I'm hoping we have that done, by May and out. I should say, when we originally developed it, it took 5 minutes. We've now got a 2-minute version done that just maps directly, gives you basically the same score that the 5-minute version would.
Right. That's great. 2 minutes is a little better. 5 minutes is quite a while. I mean, I can just see people saying, I'm fine, or I went through those first two and I'm doing fine, so screw it, and just jump in the car or something like that. Yeah, for sure. And one of the reasons I developed this too was that some states are enacting a per se limit of THC in the blood. So if you have 5 nanograms of THC in your blood, would declare you impaired. And scientific studies clearly demonstrate that per se limit does not predict impairment. Even the National Highway Safety Administration acknowledges that. I live in Massachusetts. By referendum, adult use of cannabis was legalized in Massachusetts, and so the legislature is, considering various ways to supplement, augment, change the referendum that was passed. And one of the things they're considering is a per se law. So I actually testified in front of the Massachusetts legislature, their joint marijuana policy committee, to argue against per se laws, that to argue, we should be measuring impairment and have an equivalent standard of impairment for marijuana or any drug as we do for alcohol. Agreed. I actually believe that with alcohol as well.
Yes.
I just know too many people that drink a lot, and I just know that their impairment level compared to, say, a person who never drinks or has one drink every couple of months, I mean, it's just not even the same. And I think this kind of tool should or could eventually just replace the whole idea of breathalyzers and even blood tests. Because again, I don't know that any sort of physical number or analytical number that's pulled from whatever it is, whether it's blood or saliva or breath, can be as good a evidence as somebody's actual impaired ability between their brain and their function of their hands and their ability to do things like that. And I think that these kinds of tools that you're developing are cutting edge. It's great to see there's an app for that. I mean, I hate to say that, but cell phones are quite powerful, and I think this is just awesome to have a tool like this at our disposal. Where would people go to learn more about your development on this?
Well, we have a website, www.druidapp, so druidapp.com, with a lot of information, some research that we've done, some graphs if you like numbers, number of news stories about it. So that and then you can download it, or just go to the Apple App Store now. If you actually do a search for marijuana and driving, my app is Druid is the only app that comes up.
Oh, okay, good. Well, there you go. I mean, that's an easy way to find it too. I mean, the other thing is this is not just for driving. You can think about it for operating equipment.
Well, yeah, actually,
anytime that you're worried about being impaired even from exhaustion, in any way where your mind is impaired and you're concerned about being able to operate or do something effectively.
Yeah, well, the more I have thought about Druid, the more uses I keep finding for it. I think sports team coaches could use it and have a baseline for all their player scores, and then if there's a collision, Joey, do Druid before I put you in as a screen for concussion.
Wow.
I've been contacted by a steel company in Michigan saying, "Oh, we heard about your app. We're really watching it closely. We have a bunch of guys who we do dangerous stuff in our factory, and people need their wits about them. And your app, could be a perfect application for that."
Wow!
And actually, research shows that really old people, if they do video games, and Druid has a lot of video game aspects to it. If they do video games, their cognitive processing improves, their cognitive functioning improves. So it just seems like there are sort of more and more applications that are could be really important. And I just one little story. I was working on it last summer, and my wife said, "Boy, you seem really obsessed with this." And I thought, "Oh boy, she's right. Wonder what that's about." And then I remembered that when I was because I was a Boy Scout, when I was 10, 11, 12, something like that, and we got Boys Life magazine every week or every month, and in it was a 6 or 8 panel little cartoon strip of some Boy Scout doing something heroic, rescuing people from a burning building. And I always kind of thought back then, well, I wish I could be that, kind of heroic Boy Scout. And then I realized if people use Druid and they, based on the results it gives them, they decide, well, I'll wait another half an hour before I go out and drive, I potentially have saved their life, or the lives of the people in the car with them, or the lives of the other people on the road with them. And I realized that this project is tapping some childhood emotional need or want that I had back then, and it's really made it. This project has really connected me to that.
Oh man, it's true though. You could be a superhero just by making an app. No shit though. I mean, that's a thing. I mean, I can see the double M on your chest and, the cape, and I can see it, man. I think it's great. I think it's amazing. That's when you actually emailed me when you read an article I wrote, on my website, and I just immediately contacted you because I think it's a great idea. And I think, hold on, because I think it's about to take off. And I think you need to think about this getting real big, because I think what you just said about it going to other industries, I think you can have specific apps for specific industries. I think these industries will pay you to develop these apps. I mean, there's a business here. There's definitely some money to be made and lives to save. I mean,
Exactly.
and making companies more productive. I mean, you can actually make money for companies and at the same time save people's lives with a single app or a couple of apps or something. I mean, Mike, I'm amazed. This is brilliant. And you know what? I got to tell people, you didn't just stumble across this. Because you've got a degree from Harvard. You've been doing this for 40 years? You've been a professor?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been sort of teaching statistics and research methods and devising ways to measure all sorts of different constructs for 40 years. And then I kind of realized my skill set is perfect for developing this. And it all just came together. Well, it didn't all come together. We've gone through about over 40 modifications or versions of it, when I'd say, to the programmer, speed these circles up or slow them down or have more of them or, just to try to find it felt like I was sort of tuning with multiple tasks and different aspects of the task. It felt like I was tuning a musical instrument,
Right.
to, tighten this and do this and sort of look at the effect. And I had to sort of imagine how is that going to affect the overall score and, kind of get that in my mind. And
it takes a major expertise, though, to be able to pull something like this off. So, I mean, it takes somebody with your kind of long-term experience and knowledge to understand all those, things. Some 30-year-old statistician would not put as much thought into it, probably. So, I'm glad that somebody with your expertise and seasoning has thought of this and put so much thought into it, Mike. I think it's great. So let's remind people one more time. They can find your app at www.druidapp.com, and also the information about the app and how it works as well. And then you said just that the iPhone store, the App Store.
Right, yeah, the Apple App Store there, and hopefully soon available for the Android as well.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us on Goddab Radio tonight, and I hope you have great success with this app.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Keith.
Oh yeah. So there you go. Just an app for your phone, soon to be on Android. So I encourage you to go to www.druidapp.com and check it out. Or if you have an iPhone, just get that app and check it out. I'm going to have to talk to my daughter. My daughter, Lindsay, has a iPhone 7, I think. It's a phablet. It's huge. And I'll have to see if she could download it because I want to try this and see what it's like. So yeah, that was very cool. Let's get one more shout out here from our last sponsor for Goddab Radio. Tired of pills? We can help. At Southern Oregon Alternative Medicine, we offer chiropractic and naturopathic medicine, massage, acupuncture, and medical marijuana therapy. With clinics in 19 locations across Oregon and main offices in Portland, Springfield, and Medford, we make it convenient and easy for you too. Southern Oregon Alternative Medicine is the only clinic of its kind to offer both medical marijuana certification and full health care. You can find us online at www.soaltmed.com or southernoregonalternativemedicine.com or call us at 541-779-5235. All right. Well, that wraps our show for today, Friday, April 7th, 2017. I'm Mad Dog Manser, and I have been honored to have you listening to me and my rants and raves and news and all the stuff that I find interesting. I really appreciate you guys listening. Subscribe if you could at www.goddabradio.com. And of course, you can get our podcast at iTunes, at TuneIn, on Stitcher, on Google Music Play, all of the typical places that you find your podcasts. Or just Google Goddab Radio. Trust me, we're going to be right at the top of your Google search, I guarantee. And until next week, have a good one, and we'll hear you, or you'll hear me then. Thanks a lot, folks.